I never thought my life would unravel because of an envelope without a return address. The mail that day had been ordinary: bills, advertisements, a postcard from my mother vacationing in Florida. Then I saw it, nestled between a credit card offer and a takeout menu. A plain white envelope addressed to me in handwriting I didn't recognize. Something about it made me pause. Perhaps it was the weight of it in my hand, heavier than it should have been. Or maybe some primal instinct was already warning me that what lay inside would change everything. I tore it open as I walked into our living room, expecting perhaps an invitation or a thank you note. Instead, a glossy photograph slid into my palm. My heart stumbled over its next beat. There was Lillian, my wife of 10 years, sitting at a restaurant I didn't recognize, her hand intertwined with a tall, dark-haired man I had never seen before. Their bodies leaned toward each other in that unmistakable way that spoke of intimacy beyond friendship. Her eyes sparkled with a light I hadn't seen directed at me in months. My hands trembled as I turned the photograph over. Written in the same unfamiliar handwriting were the words, "She dances not only with you. Charity Gala this Friday." The room seemed to tilt around me. I sat down hard on our sofa, the one we had picked out together after endless debates about comfort versus style. I stared at the photograph again, searching for some innocent explanation. There wasn't one. The front door opened and I quickly slipped the photograph into my pocket. Lillian swept in, her arms full of grocery bags, her cheeks flushed from the autumn chill outside. "You're home early," she said, giving me a quick smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Could you help with these?" I moved on autopilot, taking bags from her arms while my mind raced. Should I confront her now? Show her the photograph? Demand explanations? No. A cold, calculating voice in my head, one I barely recognized as my own, suggested waiting. Seeing what she would say about Friday. Whether she would tell me the truth. "How was your day?" I asked, keeping my voice casual as we unpacked groceries side by side in our kitchen. "Good. Busy." She placed a bottle of wine in the rack. "Oh, I meant to tell you, we've been invited to the charity gala at the Grand Hotel this Friday. It's for the Children's Hospital Foundation." My hand froze halfway to the cabinet with a box of pasta. "This Friday?" "Yes." She wasn't looking at me, arranging vegetables in the refrigerator drawer with unusual concentration. "It's a big event. Many of your colleagues will be there too." "I see." I placed the pasta in the pantry, watching her movements carefully. "And you want to go?" She straightened up, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, a nervous gesture I'd known for years. "I think we should. It's for a good cause and—" She hesitated, then continued with forced enthusiasm, "It'll be a nice change. We haven't been out together in a while." The irony of her words struck me like a physical blow. Out together. While she had apparently been out with someone else. "True," I said, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. "Then we should go." "Really?" Her surprise seemed genuine. "I thought I'd have to convince you." I shrugged, turning away to hide my expression. "Like you said, good cause." Over dinner, I watched her pick at her food, occasionally checking her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. 10 years of marriage had made her face as familiar to me as my own, yet tonight she seemed like a stranger, a beautiful enigma hiding secrets behind her smile. "Is everything okay?" she asked, catching me staring. "Just tired," I lied. "Work has been intense." Later that night, I lay awake beside her sleeping form, my mind replaying every moment of our recent months together. The late nights at work. The new clothes. The sudden interest in charity events. I studied her face in the dim light filtering through our curtains. The gentle curve of her cheek, the soft parting of her lips as she breathed. This woman who had once promised to share her life with me was now sharing secrets with another man. The question that haunted me as dawn approached wasn't just whether she was having an affair. The photograph made that clear enough. No, what kept me staring at the ceiling was far more painful. Had I ever really known her at all? I spent the next few days in a fog, going through motions at work while my mind obsessively circled around Friday night. Each evening at home became an exercise in deception, pretending everything was normal while watching Lillian for clues, analyzing her every word and gesture like evidence at a crime scene. Friday arrived with the cruel inevitability of a ticking bomb. I came home early to find our bedroom transformed into a staging area for Lillian's preparations. Makeup scattered across the vanity, several pairs of shoes lined up against the wall, and hanging on the closet door, a dress I'd never seen before. Emerald green silk that caught the light as it swayed slightly in the breeze from the open window. "Is that new?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe as Lillian emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair still damp from the shower. Her eyes flickered to the dress and back to me. This? No, I've had it for a while. Just haven't worn it in ages. The lie slid from her lips so effortlessly that for a brief, disorienting moment, I questioned the evidence of my own memory. I knew her wardrobe as well as I knew my own. That dress had never hung in our closet. It's beautiful, I said, the compliment tasting like ash in my mouth. Thank you. She smiled, a genuine smile that twisted the knife deeper. You should get ready too. We should arrive by 8. I showered and dressed mechanically, donning my best suit while my reflection stared back at me with haunted eyes. The man in the mirror looked like a stranger, someone playing the role of a husband while his insides hollowed out. The drive to the Grand Hotel was filled with Lillian's nervous chatter about people who would be there, the auction items, the charity's work. Her fingers kept checking her phone, sliding the screen on and off as though expecting a message that hadn't yet arrived. Waiting for someone to call? I asked, keeping my tone light. What? No. She slipped the phone into her clutch with a snap. Just checking the time. The Grand Hotel lived up to its name, with crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light over the ballroom where the gala was being held. Lillian gripped my arm as we entered, but her eyes were scanning the crowd, methodically moving from face to face with the intensity of a searchlight. I'll get us some drinks, I said, extricating myself from her grip. She barely nodded, still surveying the room. White wine, please. From my position at the bar, I had a perfect view of the ballroom. I watched Lillian as she moved among the guests, smiling and chatting, but always with that searching look. Then I saw her whole demeanor change in an instant. Her spine straightened, her movements became more fluid, her smile brightened to incandescent. I followed her gaze and saw him, the man from the photograph. Tall, dark-haired, moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of someone who knows his own worth and expects others to recognize it too. He was heading directly toward Lillian. I gripped my glass so hard I thought it might shatter. The bartender asked if I wanted another, but I barely heard him. My entire focus was on the tableau unfolding across the room. He reached her. Their hands touched in greeting, lingering a beat too long. Lillian laughed at something he said, tossing her head back in a way I hadn't seen in years. They moved slightly apart from the crowd, creating their own intimate bubble in the middle of the noisy gala. When the band began playing a slow melody, he extended his hand in invitation. She took it without hesitation, without even a glance around the room to see if I was watching. They moved to the dance floor, and his hand found the small of her back, pulling her closer than propriety allowed. I watched as they danced. His hand slid lower than it had any right to go. Her head tilted toward him, lips parted, eyes only for him. Their bodies moved together with the practiced ease of people who had danced this way many times before. Something cold and decisive crystallized inside me. I placed my untouched drink on the bar and started toward them, navigating through laughing guests and waiters carrying trays of champagne. A woman tried to engage me in conversation, some colleague's wife whose name I couldn't recall, but I brushed past her with a mumbled apology. The music swelled as I approached. They were so lost in each other they didn't notice me until I was standing directly beside them. I plastered a false smile on my face and extended my hand to the stranger who was holding my wife. I don't believe we've met, I said, my voice sounding eerily calm to my own ears. I'm Audrey, Lillian's husband. The man didn't miss a beat. He released Lillian, whose face had gone sheet white, and took my hand in a firm grip. Dominic, he replied, meeting my gaze steadily. Your wife and I have been working together on the charity project. She's been an incredible asset. I smiled wider, feeling my face might crack from the strain. Has she? Lillian has many talents. I'm discovering new ones all the time. Her eyes darted between us, panic written in every line of her body. For the first time in days I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Let her feel fear. Let her wonder what I knew, what I planned to do. Why don't you join us at our table? I suggested to Dominic. I'd love to hear more about this project you've been working on together. The three of us made our way to a corner table, an awkward triangle moving through the crowd. I placed my hand on the small of Lillian's back, exactly where his had been moments before, and felt her stiffen beneath my touch. A small, cruel part of me enjoyed her discomfort. What a lovely venue they've chosen this year, Dominic commented as we sat down, seemingly unruffled by my sudden appearance. The Children's Hospital fundraiser always draws the city's finest. Indeed, I replied, signaling a passing waiter for champagne. Though I must admit this is my first time attending. Lillian usually attends these functions alone. Work keeps me so busy, you understand. Lillian's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. Audrey has been working on a major development project. It's been consuming most of his time for nearly 2 years now. Ah yes, the Westview complex, Dominic nodded, his eyes gleaming with interest. I've heard it's quite revolutionary. Sustainable design, cutting-edge technology, all while maintaining affordability. Impressive work. The fact that he knew specific details about my project sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't casual knowledge. These were aspects we'd kept relatively quiet during development. You seem well informed, I observed, maintaining my pleasant facade. Are you in real estate development as well? Finance primarily, he answered smoothly. My firm invests in promising ventures across various industries. Your project has generated quite the buzz in certain circles. The waiter arrived with champagne, pouring 3 flutes with practiced elegance. I watched as Dominic and Lillian exchanged a quick glance when they thought I was distracted by the waiter. It lasted only a fraction of a second, but carried the weight of shared secrets. To new connections, Dominic raised his glass, the picture of sophistication and charm. We clinked glasses and I took a sip while studying him over the rim. Handsome certainly. Expensive suit, custom tailored. The kind of man who was used to getting what he wanted. The kind of man who wouldn't hesitate to take another man's wife, or his business secrets. If you'll excuse me for a moment, I said, placing my napkin on the table. Nature calls. Instead of heading to the restroom, I made my way to the bar where a young man was mixing drinks with theatrical flourish. I waited until he finished serving a customer, then approached, pulling the photograph from my inner pocket. Have you seen this couple before? I asked quietly, sliding it across the counter. The bartender glanced down, then quickly away, suddenly very interested in wiping an already clean section of the bar. I don't get involved in customers' personal business, sir, he muttered. I slid $100 bill next to the photo. I'm not asking you to get involved. I'm just asking a simple question. His eyes darted to the money, then back to my face, gauging me. Finally, he sighed and leaned closer. They come in here weekly. Same corner table. He nodded toward a secluded booth far from the main floor. Been happening for months now. Always Tuesday evenings around 8. Thank you, I said, leaving both the money and the photo. I'll take a scotch, neat? Sir, he called as I started to walk away. I turned back and he slid the photograph toward me. You forgot this. Keep it, I replied. You might need evidence someday too. Drink in hand, I stood at the periphery of the ballroom, observing Lillian and Dominic at our table. Without my presence between them, they had shifted closer together. She was speaking animatedly, her hands moving in that expressive way they did when she was excited about something. He was leaning toward her, completely absorbed. They looked like lovers. Not people having a casual affair, but 2 people deeply entangled. The realization hit me with unexpected force. This wasn't just physical betrayal, this was emotional infidelity in its most complete form. I downed my scotch in one burning gulp. Instead of returning to the table, I walked straight to the exit, handing my ticket to the valet without a backward glance. Sir, should I let your wife know you're leaving? Asked a concerned staff member who had evidently noticed my abrupt departure. No, I replied. I think she's perfectly happy where she is. The night air was cool against my face as I waited for my car, a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Lillian. Where are you? I ignored it, slipping the phone back into my pocket as the valet pulled up with my car. Behind the wheel, I finally allowed the comm mask to crack. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. 6 months, I whispered to myself, recalling the bartender's words. Every Tuesday for 6 months. All those late meetings she'd claimed to have. All those work emergencies on Tuesday evenings. All the while, I'd been too absorbed in my project to notice the signs. Instead of driving home, I headed toward my office. I needed space to think, to plan my next move. The betrayal burned in my chest, a physical pain that threatened to overwhelm me. But beneath the pain, something else was forming, a cold, calculating determination. If Lillian and Dominic thought they could make a fool of me, they were about to discover how wrong they were. As I drove through the darkened streets, one thing became abundantly clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. My office building stood dark and silent as I pulled into the empty parking lot. The security guard recognized me with a nod. My late-night work sessions were legendary among the staff. What he didn't know was that tonight I wasn't here to build anything. I was here to uncover how much of my life had been destroyed. The spare key to our house was in my desk drawer. I'd kept it there for emergencies, never imagining the emergency would be the collapse of my marriage. As I rode the elevator to the 14th floor, a memory surfaced, Lillian setting up our cloud storage accounts 3 years ago, insisting we sync our devices in case anything happens. The irony wasn't lost on me. My office was exactly as I'd left it that afternoon. Project blueprints spread across the table, half-empty coffee mug on the desk, a photo of Lillian and me from our vacation in Greece propped against the monitor. I picked up the frame, studying our smiling faces. We'd been happy then, or so I'd thought. Had she been planning her betrayal even then? Had she already met Dominic? I placed the photo face down and turned on my computer. The familiar hum as it started up felt like the only constant thing left in my world. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the mouse. Was I really going to invade Lillian's privacy like this? Wasn't I stooping to her level? But then I remembered her hand in his, the way she'd looked at him on the dance floor, and my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about our marriage anymore. The way Dominic had talked about my project. There was something else going on. I logged into our shared cloud account. Lillian's devices were there, synced automatically as she'd set up years ago. I navigated to her email, feeling like a thief breaking into my own home. Her inbox appeared organized, professional, emails from colleagues, newsletters, online purchase confirmations. Nothing suspicious at first glance. Then I noticed a folder labeled simply Drafts. I clicked on it and found dozens of unsent messages, all addressed to one recipient, d.rice@meridianfinance.com. Dominic Rice. The name stared back at me from the screen. With a deep breath, I opened the oldest draft, dated 6 months ago. Dominic, I can't stop thinking about our conversation at the corporate mixer. Your perspective on investment opportunities was eye-opening, but what truly captivated me was your passion. I haven't felt that kind of connection in years. Would you consider meeting for coffee to discuss further? Lillian. My stomach clenched as I opened a more recent draft. D. Aldry suspects nothing. He's completely absorbed in the Westview project, working late almost every night. The guilt is becoming unbearable, but when I'm with you, everything else fades away. I've never felt so alive, so seen. Tuesday can't come soon enough. Oh. Message after message revealed the progression of their relationship, from professional interest to casual meetings to full-blown affair. With each draft I read, the woman I thought I knew disappeared further, replaced by a stranger who could lie to my face day after day. The most recent draft, dated just 2 days ago, delivered the final blow. I've made my decision. After the charity gala, I'll tell Aldry everything. It's time to end this charade. The documents you asked for are in my desk at home. I'll bring them Friday. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. I love you. Oh. I sat back in my chair, feeling as if all the air had been sucked from the room. She was planning to leave me. And what documents was she referring to? With hands that didn't feel like my own, I connected the office printer and began printing the emails. I needed evidence, not just of her infidelity but of whatever else they were planning. As page after page emerged from the printer, the full extent of the betrayal took shape before my eyes. 20 minutes later, I sat surrounded by paper, each sheet a piece of my shattered world. The emails revealed not just a love affair but something potentially more sinister. References to the project specs, investment opportunities, and insider advantages were scattered throughout their exchanges. The realization hit me with sickening clarity. Dominic wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was using her to get information about the Westview project, a development worth millions that my company had kept carefully guarded during the planning phases. My phone rang, breaking the silence. Lillian's name flashed on the screen. I watched it ring until it stopped, unable to trust myself to speak to her. A text followed immediately. Where are you? I'm worried. Please come home. Home. The word felt hollow now, stripped of meaning. How could I go back to a house built on lies? I gathered the printed emails, placed them carefully in a folder, and locked it in my desk drawer. Then I picked up my phone and made a call to the one person I thought I could still trust. Jared? It's Aldry. I need to see you. Now. Can you meet me at Milligan's in 20 minutes? My oldest friend, my best man at our wedding, agreed without hesitation. As I drove to the bar on the outskirts of town, rain began to fall, matching my darkening mood. Whatever game Lillian and Dominic were playing, I was no longer a passive participant. It was time to change the rules. Milligan's was a dive bar where neon beer signs provided more illumination than the actual lighting fixtures. The kind of place where questions weren't asked and privacy was respected. Exactly what I needed tonight. I arrived first, claiming a corner booth with a view of the door. The waitress recognized me from the handful of times Jared and I had met here over the years, nodding as she placed a whiskey in front of me without my having to order. "Rough night?" she asked, eyeing my formal attire. "You could say that," I replied, loosening my tie. "Your usual friend coming?" "Yes. Send him over when he arrives." She left me to my thoughts, which swirled as dark as the amber liquid in my glass. I couldn't stop replaying moments from the past 6 months, recasting every late night, every distracted conversation, every declined invitation in light of what I now knew. The door opened and Jared walked in, scanning the dimly lit space until he spotted me. Even from across the room, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the hesitation in his stride. He knew something. I was certain of it before he even reached the table. He slid into the booth across from me, his face drawn with concern. "Audrey, what's going on?" Your call sounded urgent. Instead of answering, I reached into my jacket and pulled out the folder of emails, placing it between us. "Did you know?" Jared stared at the folder without opening it. "Know what?" "About Lillian and Dominic Rice." His eyes darted away from mine, fingers nervously tapping against his beer bottle the waitress had just delivered. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. "Jared," I pressed, my voice low but insistent. "Did you?" "No." He exhaled slowly, shoulders slumping. "I suspected. I didn't have proof." My oldest friend, the man who'd stood beside me as I'd made my vows to Lillian, couldn't look me in the eye. I pushed the folder toward him. "Well, now you have proof. Read them." I watched his face as he flipped through the pages, expressions shifting from discomfort to shock to something like anger. When he finally looked up, genuine remorse filled his eyes. "Audrey, I'm so sorry. I should have said something." "Yes, you should have," I agreed, the betrayal of his silence almost as painful as Lillian's infidelity. "How long have you suspected?" Jared rubbed his face with his hands. "A couple of months. I saw them together at Rossetti's. They didn't see me, I was picking up takeout in the bar area. The way they were looking at each other, it wasn't business." "And you didn't think to mention this to me?" "I tried in a way. Remember when I suggested that you and Lillian should take that weekend trip to the coast? Or when I kept inviting you both to dinner? I was trying to give you opportunities to reconnect, hoping whatever was happening would fizzle out." I laughed bitterly. "Playing marriage counselor rather than telling me my wife was cheating? That was your solution." "I didn't want to be wrong," he admitted. "And if I was right? God, Audrey, I didn't want to be the one to destroy your world." I took a long drink of whiskey, letting its burn match the fire in my chest. "There's more. It's not just the affair." "What do you mean?" "Dominic Rice. Tell me what you know about him." Jared shifted uncomfortably. "He's a big player in investment finance. His firm, Meridian, has been expanding aggressively in the last year. They've been particularly interested in development projects with sustainability angles." "Projects like Westview," I stated flatly. "Yes." He hesitated, then added, "There's something else you should know. Dominic's firm has been circling your company for months. He's been buying up small stakes through various shell companies." The pieces clicked into place. "He's using Lillian to get inside information on my project." "It looks that way." My phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced down to see an email from our company's legal department, marked urgent. As I opened it, Jared's phone chimed as well. He looked at his screen, then at me, his face suddenly ashen. "Audrey, did you know about this?" "About what?" "Your stake in the company. It's been sold. The deal was just finalized, less than an hour ago." The room seemed to tilt as I quickly scanned the email on my phone. My minority ownership position, shares I'd accumulated over 8 years of dedicated work, had been transferred to an investment group. The paperwork had been processed with my electronic signature. A signature I had never provided. "This is impossible," I whispered. "I never authorized this." Jared's eyes widened as realization dawned. "The documents Lillian mentioned in the email. Could she have had access to your authorization credentials?" "Of course she did. We had shared everything, passwords, accounts, our entire lives. The trust that had once been the foundation of our marriage had become the weapon of its destruction." "They've been planning this all along," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "This wasn't just an affair. It was corporate espionage." "What are you going to do?" Jared asked. I stood up, leaving cash on the table for our drinks. A strange calm had settled over me, replacing the chaotic emotions of the past hours. The path forward was suddenly crystalline clear. "I'm going home," I said. It's time Lillian and I had a conversation about her extracurricular activities, both personal and professional. Audrey, wait, Jared called as I turned to leave. Don't do anything you'll regret. I looked back at my friend, a grim smile on my face. The only thing I regret is not seeing this coming sooner. But that's about to change. As I walked out into the rain-slicked night, I felt something I hadn't expected, not just anger or hurt, but a steely resolve. Lillian and Dominic had underestimated me. That was their first mistake. It would also be their last. The drive home felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else navigate the rain-slicked streets, someone else's hands on the steering wheel, someone else's life disintegrating with each passing mile. The rational part of my mind argued for caution, for strategic thinking, for professional handling of the situation. But another part, a wounded, primal part, wanted confrontation, wanted Lillian to see what she had done. It was past midnight when I pulled into our driveway. The house was lit up, every light blazing as if to ward off the darkness both outside and within. I sat in the car for several minutes, gathering my thoughts, preparing for what would come next. When I finally entered, I found Lillian in the living room, pacing. She had changed out of her gala clothes. The emerald dress hung carefully over the back of a chair, a silent witness to the evening's betrayals. She wore her comfortable loungewear now, hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, face scrubbed clean of makeup. She looked like the woman I had fallen in love with years ago, which made everything infinitely worse. She stopped abruptly when she saw me. "Where have you been?" "I've been calling and texting for hours." I closed the door behind me with deliberate calm. "I needed some air." "Some air." Her voice rose incredulously. "You disappeared without a word. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" "I had to make excuses for you." Dominic was concerned. "I'm sure he was," I cut in, my tone cooler than the rain outside. How inconvenient for him when the husband he's trying to defraud suddenly appears at his little rendezvous with my wife. Lillian's face paled slightly before she recovered, defaulting to indignation. "What are you talking about? Dominic is a business associate working on the charity project. Your behavior tonight was completely inappropriate." I moved to the chair, picked up the emerald dress, and examined it with exaggerated care. "New dress for a business associate? You must really value the relationship." "I told you it's not new. I've had it." "For a while, yes, so you said." I laid the dress across the sofa. "Funny, I don't recall seeing it before. Must have been buried deep in your closet. Like all those Tuesday night meetings that kept you working late for the past 6 months." Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "What are you implying?" Instead of answering, I reached into my jacket and silently placed the printed emails on the coffee table between us. Lillian stared at them, her face transforming as recognition dawned. The color drained from her cheeks, followed by a flush of anger. "You went through my private emails?" Her voice trembled with outrage. "How dare you invade my privacy like that?" The absurdity of her response nearly made me laugh. "Your privacy? You've been having an affair, planning to leave me, and sharing confidential information about my project, and you're concerned about privacy? You had no right." She took a step back, but her eyes kept darting to the pile of papers, as if trying to gauge exactly what I'd discovered. "I had every right. Those documents you promised to bring to Dominic tonight, what exactly were they, Lillian?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out to find another email notification, this one confirming changes to the Westview project's investment structure. The architectural plans I'd spent 2 years developing were now effectively under Dominic's control. I held up the screen for Lillian to see. "Is this what you were helping him accomplish? Stealing my project? My company shares?" Her eyes widened at the email's content. "Audrey, I had no idea he would." "Don't," I interrupted, a sudden wave of exhaustion washing over me. "Don't lie to me anymore. I can't take any more lies." She sank onto the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. For a long moment, silence hung between us like a physical presence. When she finally spoke, her voice was subdued. "It didn't start like this. It was just conversations at first. He was interested in my marketing perspective on sustainability projects. He made me feel valued, important. And I didn't?" The question escaped before I could stop it, revealing more vulnerability than I wanted to show. Lillian's eyes met mine, and I saw genuine regret there. "You were so consumed with Westview. For months it was all you talked about, all you thought about. I became background noise in your life. So you decided to betray not just me but my work too? The project that was so important to me that you felt neglected by it?" She flinched at the word betray. "Dominic said it was just market research. Standard practice. He never mentioned buying shares or taking control. I didn't believe her. The emails had made it clear she knew more than she was admitting, but before I could press further, my phone rang. Jared's name flashed on the screen. "Excuse me," I said coldly, stepping into the hallway to answer. "Jared, what's happening?" His voice came through urgent and strained. "The company's legal team has been alerted. They've discovered unauthorized access to the project servers. Multiple file transfers over the past 3 months from an external IP address. They're launching an investigation immediately." An external IP? I glanced back at Lillian, who was staring fixedly at the pile of emails. Or an authorized user accessing from an unauthorized location? They didn't specify, but Audrey, this is serious. Corporate espionage carries criminal penalties. If Lillian was involved. I understand, I cut him off, not wanting her to hear too much. Keep me posted. When I returned to the living room, Lillian looked up with tear-filled eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen, Audrey. You have to believe me. I don't have to believe anything you say anymore, I replied quietly, heading toward our bedroom. I'm packing a bag. I can't stay here tonight. Where are you going? She called after me, panic edging into her voice. I paused at the doorway. First to a lawyer, then possibly to the police. What you and Dominic did, it's not just infidelity, Lillian. It's a crime. Lillian followed me into the bedroom, her composure crumbling with each step. The police? Audrey, you can't be serious. This is just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I yanked my suitcase from the closet, throwing it open on the bed. You've been sleeping with another man for months while feeding him confidential information about my project. Which part did I misunderstand? My calm detachment seemed to unnerve her more than anger would have. She hovered by the doorway, watching as I methodically packed clothing, toiletries, important documents. Please, she whispered. Just listen to me. I never intended to hurt you. I continued packing without looking at her. Your intentions are irrelevant at this point. The damage is done. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she insisted, stepping closer. In the beginning, Dominic was just someone who paid attention to me, who listened. You were so distant, so obsessed with your work. I whirled around, my forced composure finally cracking. Don't you dare blame me for your choices. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. We could have worked on our marriage. Instead, you chose to betray everything we built together. I tried talking to you. Tears streamed down her face now. For months I tried. But you were never really present, even when you were home. Your mind was always on Westview. I zipped the suitcase closed with more force than necessary. And so you decided to help Dominic steal it from me? Was that your idea of poetic justice? No. She grabbed my arm as I lifted the suitcase off the bed. I swear, Audrey, I didn't know what he was planning. He asked questions about the project, casual things at first. Then he wanted to see some of the plans, just the public-facing materials, he said, to evaluate potential investment opportunities. I shook off her grip. And you believed him? Or did you just not care as long as he kept taking you to dinner and dancing with you every Tuesday night? Lillian flinched as if I'd struck her. It wasn't like that. What was it like then? I set down the suitcase and faced her fully. Explain to me exactly how you ended up giving confidential information to a financial predator who's now orchestrated a hostile takeover of my life's work. She sank onto the edge of the bed, shoulders slumped in defeat. At first, it really was just professional interest. He made me feel valued, important. The questions seemed innocent. By the time I realized he might have other motives, we were involved. He convinced me that what he was doing was normal business intelligence, nothing illegal. And you chose to believe him because it was convenient, because it justified what you were already doing. She didn't deny it, which was perhaps the most honest thing she'd done in months. Did you access the project servers using my credentials? I asked, already knowing the answer. Her silence was confirmation enough. Lillian, do you understand what you've done? This isn't just about our marriage anymore. This is corporate espionage. You could face criminal charges. He said it would help both of us, she whispered. That we'd have a fresh start together after after we ended things. He promised no one would get hurt. A bitter laugh escaped me. And you believe that too? Tell me, was there anything he said that you didn't blindly accept? I loved him, she said simply, as if that explained everything. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not I love him, but I loved him, past tense. I wondered what had changed. And me? I asked, hating myself for needing to know. Did you ever really love me? Of course I did. Her eyes met mine, red-rimmed but earnest. For years you were everything to me. But people change, Audrey. We both changed. I picked up my suitcase again. No, Lillian. I didn't change. I'm still the same man who promised to love and honor you. You're the one who became someone else. As I turned to leave, she rose and grabbed my arm again. Please don't go to the police. Please, Audrey. I'll do anything. I'll tell them it was all me, that you knew nothing about it. Are you confessing to a crime? I asked, studying her face. I'm asking you not to destroy my life, she replied, desperation evident in every word. I made a terrible mistake, I know that now. Dominic was never who I thought he was. Tonight, after you left, he called me. When I told him you'd found out about us, do you know what he said? He said it didn't matter anymore because he had what he needed. He actually thanked me for my services. The cruel irony almost made me feel sorry for her. Almost. So he used you just like you used me, I observed. Fitting, isn't it? I didn't use you, she protested weakly. 10 years of marriage, Lillian. 10 years, and you threw it away for someone who saw you as nothing but a means to an end. Tears welled in her eyes again. I didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. Please, Audrey. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I gently removed her hand from my arm. It's far too late for that. The company is already investigating. If you access those servers using my credentials, there's a digital trail linking directly to you. I couldn't stop this now even if I wanted to. What are you going to do? She asked, fear evident in her voice. I'm going to a hotel. Tomorrow, I'll speak with a lawyer about divorce proceedings and about my legal exposure in this corporate mess you've created. After that, I'll cooperate fully with whatever investigation follows. I moved toward the door. I suggest you find your own lawyer. You're going to need one. Audrey, she called as I reached the doorway. I truly am sorry. I paused but didn't turn around. So am I, Lillian. For both of us. As I closed the front door behind me, the finality of the sound echoed through the empty spaces of what had once been a home filled with love and trust. Now it was just a house of broken promises and bitter dances with strangers. The hotel room was impersonal and sterile, beige walls, generic artwork, and a bed that felt too large for one person. I sat on the edge of it, staring at my phone as dawn broke outside the window. Sleep had eluded me entirely, my mind too busy cataloging betrayals and calculating losses. At 7, I called the company's lead counsel, Eleanor Wright. She answered on the first ring as if she'd been waiting for my call. Audrey, she said, her voice crisp and professional. I was about to contact you. Can you come to the office at 8? Bring anything you have related to the security breach. I'll be there, I promised, already reaching for the folder of printed emails. The company headquarters seemed different that morning. Faces turned toward me as I walked through the lobby, whispers following in my wake. News traveled fast in corporate circles. By now, everyone likely knew that the Westview project had been compromised and that I was somehow involved. Eleanor met me at the elevator, her sharp eyes taking in my rumpled appearance. You look like hell, she observed. Feel worse, I admitted. She led me not to her office but to a conference room where several people were already waiting. The CEO, Martin Davis, the head of IT security, Raj Patel, and 2 men I didn't recognize wearing serious expressions and expensive suits. Audrey, Martin greeted me with unexpected warmth. Thank you for coming in so quickly. I placed the folder on the table. Everything I discovered is in here. My wife has been having an affair with Dominic Rice for the past 6 months. During that time, she accessed confidential Westview files using my credentials and passed information to him. The room fell silent as Eleanor picked up the folder and began examining its contents. After a moment, she passed several pages to one of the unknown men, who nodded grimly. These corroborate what we already suspected, he said, then turned to me. Mr. Winters, I'm Special Agent Thomas from the FBI's White Collar Crime Division. This is my colleague Agent Cooper. We've been investigating Dominic Rice for securities fraud and corporate espionage for the past 8 months. The revelation struck me like a physical blow. 8 months? Then you knew. We've had Rice under surveillance, Agent Cooper interjected. But we lacked definitive evidence linking him to specific criminal acts. Until recently. Martin leaned forward, his expression softening slightly. Audrey, there's something you need to know. The company has been aware of suspicious activity surrounding the Westview project for nearly 3 months. 3 months? I echoed, struggling to process this information. And no one thought to tell me? Eleanor stepped in. We implemented enhanced security protocols as soon as we detected unusual access patterns. We identified your credentials being used from unauthorized locations, but we couldn't determine if it was you or someone else using your login. So you set a trap, I said slowly, the pieces falling into place. You were using me as bait. Raj looked uncomfortable. Not exactly bait. But we did create a secure environment with monitored access points. Certain files contained embedded trackers, digital watermarks that would identify if and when they were copied or transmitted externally. We needed to determine who was behind the security breach and where the information was going, Martin explained. If we'd alerted you, there was a risk that subtle changes in your behavior might tip off the perpetrator. My wife, I said flatly. You let her continue stealing information for months without warning me. We didn't know it was your wife, Eleanor clarified. We only knew someone was using your credentials from multiple locations simultaneously, which suggested credential theft rather than direct involvement. Agent Thomas opened a laptop and turned it toward me. We have security footage from several locations showing your wife meeting with Dominic Rice and exchanging documents. The video showed Lillian in a restaurant, sliding a manila envelope across the table to Dominic. Another clip captured them in a parking garage, his hand lingering on hers as she passed him what looked like a flash drive. The timestamp spanned the past 2 months. Why are you showing me this? I asked, unable to look away from the evidence of Lillian's betrayal. Because we're going to arrest Dominic Rice today, Agent Cooper replied. And potentially your wife as an accomplice. We wanted you to understand the full scope of the situation before it becomes public. I felt numb. You used my personal life, my marriage, as part of your investigation without my knowledge or consent. Martin at least had the decency to look ashamed. The decision wasn't made lightly, Audrey. The Westview project represents hundreds of millions in potential revenue. We had to protect the company's interests. And what about my interests? I demanded, anger finally breaking through the shock. You let me go home every night to someone who was betraying me. You let me continue working on a project that was being systematically stolen. For months. That's why we're here now, Eleanor said quietly. To make this right. How exactly do you propose to do that? I asked bitterly. Martin slid a document across the table. Full reinstatement of your company shares, plus a 20% increase in equity. A promotion to Executive Director of Sustainable Development, with complete creative control over all future projects. And comprehensive legal protection against any liability related to the security breach. I stared at the document without touching it. You think you can buy me off? Make me forget that you used my personal tragedy as a corporate strategy? No, Eleanor replied. We think we can offer you a way forward professionally while we handle the legal consequences of what's happened. Your career shouldn't suffer because of others' actions. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I glanced down to see a headline that made my blood run cold. Financial mogul Dominic Rice arrested on charges of corporate espionage and securities fraud. Agent Thomas noticed my expression. The arrest is happening now. Your wife will likely be brought in for questioning within the hour. I stood up abruptly. I need some air. Audrey, Martin called as I headed for the door. We're on your side in this. I paused, looking back at the room full of people who had watched my life implode without warning me. No, you're on your own side. You always have been. The only difference is that now, for once, our interests happen to align. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again with a message from Jared. Have you seen the news? Call me ASAP. The walls of the corporate world I'd devoted my life to suddenly felt like a prison. Everyone had been playing a game around me, Lillian, Dominic, my own company, while I remained oblivious, focused on building something I thought mattered. Now I had to decide what, if anything, still did. 3 months passed like a blur of legal meetings, depositions, and sleepless nights. I moved into a downtown apartment with minimalist furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered panoramic views of the city I no longer recognized as home. The divorce proceedings had begun, clinical and detached, reducing 10 years of marriage to assets and liabilities meticulously cataloged by attorneys who charged by the hour. Dominic's trial dominated business news. The financial wunderkind who had built a reputation on aggressive yet seemingly legitimate investments now stood revealed as a sophisticated fraudster. His scheme had targeted not just my company but several others, using personal relationships to extract proprietary information. The media had taken to calling it the Pillow Talk Conspiracy, a name that twisted the knife each time I heard it. Lillian had agreed to testify against him in exchange for reduced charges. I learned this not from her but from Eleanor, who had become an unexpected ally during the aftermath. She handled the corporate side of the legal morass while my personal attorney managed the divorce. How are you holding up? Jared asked as we met for lunch at a new restaurant far from our old haunts. I poked at my barely touched salad. I'm functioning. That's not what I asked. I sighed, setting down my fork. What do you want me to say? That I'm devastated? Angry? Relieved? All of the above. I want you to be honest, he said. With me, but more importantly, with yourself. I stared out the window at pedestrians hurrying past, each absorbed in their own private world. I've started therapy, I admitted. Twice a week. Trying to understand how I missed so many signs. Jared nodded approvingly. That's good. Really good. The therapist says I was workaholic, that I created the conditions for what happened. I laughed without humor. Apparently, I share some responsibility for my wife deciding to sleep with another man and steal my work. That's not. I know, I cut him off. She's trying to help me see patterns so I don't repeat them. But sometimes it feels like blaming the victim. You're allowed to be angry, Audrey. What happened to you was horrific. I took a sip of water, buying time to compose myself. The worst part is that I still miss her. Not the person she became, but the woman I thought she was. The life we had, or the one I imagined we had. Jared reached across the table and squeezed my shoulder. That's normal. You're grieving. I got an apology letter from her last week, I said quietly. Sent through her lawyer. 6 pages of remorse and explanations. And? I haven't replied. Not sure I ever will. I straightened my shoulders, reaching for a change of subject. The company offered me a better position. Executive director with complete creative control and a significant equity increase. Are you going to take it? I shrugged. Where else would I go? Starting over seems exhausting. Maybe exhausting is what you need, Jared suggested. New challenges, new people, new perspective. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I glanced down to see it was from Martin, subject line, board approval confirmed. The promotion was official. Speak of the devil, I murmured, showing Jared the screen. Congratulations, he offered tentatively. Thanks, I think. I pocketed the phone without opening the email. It feels hollow, knowing it's partly guilt money for using me as corporate bait. Then make them pay even more, Jared suggested with a sly smile. Take the position, the money, the power, and use it to build something amazing on your terms. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of genuine enthusiasm. That's not a bad idea. The rest of lunch passed with easier conversation. Jared updated me on mutual friends, carefully avoiding any mention of those who had sided with Lillian after the scandal broke. There had been a surprising number who believed her claims of being an unwitting pawn in Dominic's schemes, despite the evidence to the contrary. As we parted outside the restaurant, my phone buzzed again. A text message from an unknown number. I received a 2-year suspended sentence. Dominic betrayed me just like I betrayed you. I've lost everything. Oh. I stared at the screen, emotions churning. No request for forgiveness, just a statement of fact. Perhaps she'd finally learned that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Jared noticed my expression. Bad news? Just ghosts, I replied, putting the phone away without responding. Nothing I can't handle. That evening, I stood at my apartment window watching the sunset paint the city in hues of gold and crimson. My therapist had suggested creating new rituals to replace the ones I'd shared with Lillian. Every evening at sunset, I now took 10 minutes to reflect on one positive thing from the day, no matter how small. Today it was easy. I'd felt a spark of purpose again, a desire to create rather than just survive. My laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, the promotion offer waiting for my digital signature. Beside it lay a business card Eleanor had given me for a headhunting firm specializing in architectural innovation, with a note, just in case you want options. For the first time since that fateful night at the charity gala, I felt the weight on my chest lighten slightly. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but at least I could see that multiple paths existed. My phone chimed with another message. I expected it to be Lillian again, but instead found a newsletter from a local museum announcing a new exhibition on sustainable urban design. Something about the thoughtful curation described in the email caught my interest. On impulse, I added the opening reception to my calendar. It was time to start meeting new people, exploring new ideas, building a life that belonged solely to me. As darkness fell over the city, I realized I had gone nearly 2 hours without thinking about Lillian or Dominic or betrayal. It wasn't healing, not yet. But it was a beginning. 1 year to the day after the charity gala that had shattered my world, I found myself attending the same annual event. The irony wasn't lost on me as I adjusted my tie in the mirror of the Grand Hotel's lobby. The man reflected back barely resembled the one who had stood in this same spot 12 months ago. There was gray now at my temples, fine lines around my eyes that hadn't been there before. But there was something else too. A steadiness, a hard-won clarity that came from rebuilding a life from its foundations. I hadn't planned to attend. The invitation had arrived at my office 3 weeks earlier, and my first instinct had been to discard it. But Eleanor had convinced me otherwise. Go, she'd said over lunch. Show them all you're not just surviving but thriving. Best revenge is success, right? She wasn't wrong. The Westview project had finally launched 6 months ago to critical acclaim. As executive director, I'd expanded the original vision, transforming it from simply a sustainable housing development into an integrated community with innovative workspaces, learning centers, and public art installations. The press had called it visionary and revolutionary, words that had once seemed hollow but now filled me with quiet pride. I entered the ballroom alone, immediately noting the changes from last year. Different decorations, different band, same glittering crowd of the city's elite. Several heads turned as I made my way through the room. I caught snippets of whispered conversations trailing in my wake. That's him, the Westview architect, wife involved in the Rice scandal? I had expected the gossip and found I no longer cared. The story had played out in business journals and courtrooms, eventually fading from public interest as newer scandals emerged. Dominic was serving 8 years for securities fraud and corporate espionage. Lillian's suspended sentence had come with community service and professional disgrace. My own reputation had not just recovered but flourished, partly due to the sympathetic narrative of the betrayed husband and innovative architect who had risen above personal tragedy. "Excuse me," came a voice at my elbow. "Are you Audrey Winters?" The architect. I turned to find a woman in a deep blue dress, her dark hair swept up elegantly, intelligent eyes studying me with genuine interest. "Guilty as charged," I replied with a small smile. "And you are?" "Eliza Chin. I curate the modern design collection at the City Museum. Your Westview project is extraordinary. I've been hoping to feature it in our upcoming exhibition on urban innovation." Her enthusiasm was refreshing, untainted by knowledge of my personal history or professional setbacks. We fell into easy conversation about architecture, sustainable design, and the challenges of creating spaces that nurture community. For the first time in months, I found myself fully engaged, mentally present rather than one foot in the past. "Would you like some champagne?" I asked, gesturing toward a passing waiter. "I'd love some," she replied. As I turned to signal the server, a crash and splash of liquid startled us both. A waitress had stumbled, sending champagne spilling across the front of my suit jacket. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, grabbing a napkin and dabbing ineffectually at the spreading stain. Something about her voice made me look more closely. The waitress kept her head down, but I recognized her instantly, thinner now, her once lustrous hair dull and pulled back severely, but unmistakably Lillian. Her eyes finally met mine, recognition and mortification flashing across her features. The woman who had once commanded rooms with her presence now seemed diminished, shrunken by shame and consequence. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, the words carrying weight beyond the spilled champagne. Before I could respond, she hurried away, disappearing into the service area at the edge of the ballroom. I stood frozen, caught between past and present, the champagne cooling against my skin. "Do you know her?" Eliza asked, her perceptive gaze catching my reaction. I took a breath, centering myself in the moment. "I did once. In another life." She nodded, seeming to understand there was more to the story but respectfully not prying. "Let's see if we can find someone to help with that jacket. I know a trick for removing champagne stains before they set." As she guided me toward the restrooms, I felt a strange lightness. Seeing Lillian had been jarring but not devastating. The woman who had once held my heartstrings no longer had the power to pull them. Later, as the evening wound toward its close, the band played a slow melody. Without overthinking, I turned to Eliza. "Would you care to dance?" She smiled, genuine and warm. "I'd like that very much." On the dance floor, I caught a glimpse of Lillian watching from the periphery, a tray balanced in her hands. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded room. She looked away first, turning and vanishing into the crowd. I realized then that I felt no anger, no bitterness, not even pity, just a distant acknowledgement of a chapter closed. She had broken me, yes, but I had healed stronger at the fracture points. She had lost everything and would forever live with the consequences of her choices. "You're miles away," Eliza observed, bringing me back to the present. Not anymore, I replied, tightening my arms slightly around her waist. Just appreciating the moment. And what moment is that? I smiled, truly smiled for what felt like the first time in ages. The moment when I realized that sometimes you have to lose something important to find something invaluable. She tilted her head, curious. That sounds like there's a story behind it. There is, I acknowledged. But it's an old one. I'm more interested in new stories now. As we continued dancing beneath the chandeliers, I felt fully present in my own skin, unburdened by the weight of betrayal and loss that had been my constant companions for so long. The music, the lights, the woman in my arms, all existed in perfect clarity, unshadowed by ghosts of the past. I had been broken, but I was whole again. Different, stronger, wiser, ready at last to step fully into a new life of my own creation.